Well, hello everyone. Too loud? Okay. Thanks for staying in. You're getting a lot of Kubernetes sessions today, I guess. Uh, so this is Deepak Kallakuri. I'm from the Cloud Management Business Unit. One of the products I lead is the Code Stream. If you're familiar with the vRealize suite, vRealize Code Stream, it has taken a new avatar and completely adding the container delivery use cases in the cloud automation services SaaS form factor. So let me just start. And the mission for Cloud Management Business Unit is to create a seamless experience across clouds. You've seen a lot of multi-cloud story that today and yesterday. So we are in the business of automating across multiple clouds. So that's what we want to deliver. I'll go fairly quickly through the slides. I want to show you the demo as well. So we have about 14 minutes or so. So in this slide, looking at the multiple clouds, there's three different layers the way we look at it. One is the provisioning layer, so policy-based provisioning, so that's the cloud assembly. And you could be consuming VMware Kubernetes Engine, for example, the previous session you had. You could be consuming that as one of the public cloud services, and CodeStream could do continuous deployments onto the VMware Kubernetes Engine. So that's the idea. And that's continuous delivery. The third service that we just launched is the catalog and the policy definitions that help you define policies to deploy across multiple clouds. And these three services work in tandem. So essentially, CodeStream could leverage Cloud Assembly blueprints to make deployments to Kubernetes or traditional application VMs. So the application delivery lifecycle itself has evolved over time. There's a lot of companies are taking up continuous integration and continuous delivery now. But we think actually that's a little more to that. There is actually continuous monitoring as well that's coming up. If you see where the industry is going, it's about monitoring the application. You've just seen Grafana and Prometheus, right? So the ability to monitor once your application is deployed and then do a rollback if your performance thresholds are not met. So you want to be able to give that into the pipeline itself, the CI/CD pipeline, and then notify the operations teams or the developers so they can immediately remediate. So that way, if you have a bad build, it doesn't stay out on the production for too long. So that's the trend that's happening in the industry. So when customers are trying to adopt CI/CD solutions, one of the things that we see is there's a problem with time to value. You can take your existing CI tool, write some scripts, and extend it to a CD. That's one way to do it. But the scripts need maintenance. You have to keep monitoring and managing those. The plugins might change if you're using a plugin-based system. The ability to analyze KPIs. So if you're trying to adopt DevOps and CI/CD, you want to understand how long it takes for you to deliver a new feature into production. How often can you do that? You want to understand your agility, your performance, and how quickly are you recovering? Because the whole idea of DevOps is you have the feedback loop coming in, and you want to recover quickly. So you want to measure certain metrics. And there's not many tools that give you all of those metrics out of the box today. And the third layer is the governance aspect of things. When you have containers and Kubernetes, and not just containers and Kubernetes, in CI/CD in general, you want to ensure that people work in a certain, you want to be able to control that as an admin, so to speak. So CodeStream wants to deliver a frustration-free or a easy-to-adopt CI/CD automation experience. Unlike legacy CI tools, what we provide is the ability to monitor your pipeline executions over time and your traditional, and it works for both traditional applications as well as containers. So there's no dependency on one or the other. And we have out-of-the-box dashboards as well. So really quickly, there's a couple of different pipelines. Not many enterprises realize this, but as the CI/CD adoption is picking up, they understand that there's a couple of different pipelines. One is the infrastructure. You want to roll out your infrastructure, define your infrastructure as some sort of templates, and store that in Git. So if you're driving everything through Git, you want to monitor, ensure that the infrastructure deployment also is like infrastructure as code, right? So you want to do that. And then a pipeline that takes in that Git commit every time and then updates the infrastructure in the staging or the production environment. As it does that, you want to ensure that first you want to see what changes are you making. So you have to use some sort of tool like a cloud assembly software that can tell you, hey, this is my desired state and that's my current state. These are the bunch of changes. We'll add few resources and remove few. Are you OK with these? So you want to keep track of that and get some manual approval of some sort before you update the production and then notify the teams. The second sort of pipeline is the application pipeline, so where your developers check in code into Git, and that kicks off a CI build system, creates an image and an artifact tree, puts that in some sort of registry. And you could, at this point, actually separate the CI and the CD pipelines or just have one pipeline that does it all. So it depends on whether you're doing it for the development environment or for the production. So there's a couple of different use cases and individual practices here. But those are the two sort of big pipelines. Most people just think of the application, but there's also the infrastructure that's, with the infrastructure as code, you would want to save that in Git. That's sort of the key takeaway for this. And CodeStream allows you to do all of that. And it can work in a variety of ways. It's a very flexible software. So you can use it as your master pipeline. So meaning you can use Jenkins or your Bamboo or TFS for the build, for the CI part. And for the CD, as you promote that across environments, you can use CodeStream to do that and orchestrate that. And you get an out-of-the-box dashboard as well. The second way is for teams who are very Jenkins heavy. Instead of writing your custom scripts for doing deployments, you can just onboard Jenkins jobs into CodeStream. We have a deep integration with Jenkins. We have a Jenkins plugin. So you can just onboard and use Jenkins jobs to just start realizing some of the value. And then over time, you can move into a phase. We have customers using it in multiple ways. Our own business unit, a couple of years back, was completely on Jenkins. And they started with the use case 2. And now they've moved into the use case 1. So you could do that over time. And the third use case is essentially you continue to use your Jenkins for the build, and that kicks off an image into an artifact tree or some sort of registry. And you can get that trigger and run the CD pipeline.
VM Village is now closed. Please make your way to the nearest exit. Thank you.
So the key advantages of using CodeStream would be, one, it's easy automation. You don't have to, it's all declarative. It's pipeline as code. There's no open source plugins, so you can use the tool, the software as it comes. Supports multiple clouds and both traditional and container applications. You get out-of-the-box reporting and insights. We are adding a lot of value in that as well. Over the next release, you would see a lot more out-of-the-box dashboards coming up. And finally, the governance layer. So really quickly, you can see the YAML. It's all pipeline as code. You can import, export YAMLs. We'll have native versioning and Git integration coming soon in the next release. But essentially, you can play with the YAML and interact through CLI. You don't have to use the UI for it. So it's available both in the CLI and the UI mode. And we have an out-of-the-box deployment model for the Canary release as well. So all you have to do is set up your endpoints. And after this, I'll switch into the demo. You get to see the product. You set up your endpoints, and then there's a smart template that we have. So you've seen a smart cluster from VKE, the Kubernetes engine. We have a similar thing. We have a smart template. You answer a form, out comes a pipeline, and with a built-in Canary release for it. And you can just execute or tie it to your Git. Let me just show you a demo. All right, so this is, I'm logged into the service. At this point, you've seen the previous this consoles. VKE is also available through the same platform, so to speak. So this is the cloud services platform. And in this, let me make sure I'm still logged in. OK. So you can set up your endpoints. I have a bunch of endpoints already set up. It's really easy. Most of the endpoints I've set up now are either a Git for doing the demo, or Jenkins as part of the demo, or a VMware Kubernetes engine cluster, that one of the clusters you've seen before, the smart clusters, and a Docker registry. So it's pretty easy to set up an endpoint. You just select an endpoint type, and let's say it's Git. You just have to fill in the URL and the authentication, and you can validate the credentials. So this is my Git activity page. In the triggers, you can see the past activity here for all the commits that I've received. Whatever the system has received, you can see the commits and the status of those pipelines right here. And the pipeline itself, you can create a new pipeline. And you can see the projects are enabled. So it comes up with a blank canvas. It's pretty simple to add tasks. If you want to do a Kubernetes task, it's pretty much all plug and play. You can just set up your clusters, and they'll all show up here. The other one is the smart template. So the smart template, essentially, you create a CI/CD pipeline. We have a couple of different templates, CI/CD, CI, and CD. So a CI/CD template, let me just set one up quickly. And for this, you need to, all right, I think I lost my notes. But once you set this up, you can select the tool and the post-processing tools. And in the publish, you can enter the image URL and the image tag. And the registry is pre-filled here, so you can select from your endpoints where you want to build. This builds on a Docker host, so you can point to a Docker host, and we build a container-based build system there. And in the CD side of things, you can select your environments, and you select the deployment YAML, the basic deployment YAML, and you hit process. We would parse the file and identify the different services you have. And in that, for the deployment itself, for the development environment, you can select the appropriate environments. So if you select the project, you can see there's a Amazon cluster and a Kubernetes cluster, so you can use those. And for the deployment model itself, there's a canary out of the box. So all you have to do is essentially say for each phase what percentage you want to roll out. So you can say, I want to roll out 10% in phase 1. So 10% of the parts get updated. Phase 2, 50%, and phase 3, 100%. You can put in a health check URL as well. At that point, when you hit create, you would land in a pipeline like this. This was created essentially from the smart template. So what we're doing here is we're using the native CodeStream CI task. And we selected Maven, so it comes pre-filled with the commands for that. You're welcome to change those and change projects, etc. It's doing a test, a build, and finally a push to Docker. You can see the commands here. So we're pushing to the Docker in that. And for the deployment aspect itself, here we're creating an immutable development environment. So that's creating the namespace and running completely through that, creating the deployment after the verification. There's a delete namespace. So essentially, you can add an approval task in between just to make sure your code is up and running and it's to your satisfaction. After that, it pushes it to production. So you can see a bunch of tasks here. Everything's been pre-set up for you based on the Kubernetes YAML to update the cluster itself has been set up based on your phases. So when you set 30% for phase 1, we've automatically put in the right YAML. You can also change that. But this pipeline is designed to run straight up. So if I go to GitLab, it's configured to run with GitLab. So if I do a dummy commit into my demo page, so I'm just changing the color of the font. Right, let's commit. So we go back into Git triggers. There you go. Code session demo. So CodeStream got a trigger, and the pipeline execution has actually started. So if you go back to the pipelines page, there you go. It has been queued, and pretty soon it will start in a second. So while that's getting it out of the queue, let's look at some past execution that is completed. So you get to see the entire dashboard status. This is the execution results page. And in here, you get detailed logs as well. So you can see the build logs. And in case there's an error, you can just check out the logs. And the functional tests that we process, the JUnit Jacoco, you get to see the results as well. And the top 5 packages impacting coverage. So if you have a coverage threshold, you get to see everything. And finally, the dashboard itself. There's a out-of-the-box dashboard that comes up. You can see all the statuses right here. The past deployments. You can, in fact, do some in-context viewing of all the results as well. And all the trends. So we're expanding on these trends as well, as I mentioned, out-of-the-box DevOps in key metrics. And that's what I have for you. And as you can see, this is running. So any questions? Sure.
I've heard a lot about Lifecycle Manager and how supposedly those
Sure.
so all of these features fit within that.
So Lifecycle Manager is on the on-premises side, and Lifecycle Manager is for managing your VRA content. It's not for your applications or COTS, commercial off-the-shelf application you want to deploy.
So CodeStream currently has integration with VRA, but
Correct.
if you're removing that feature from CodeStream,
That has already been done. So Lifecycle Manager already has the feature to just manage your VRA content, and that's separate from the CodeStream product. The CodeStream product is for managing your applications. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.